We welcome to the program Rand Paul, a senator from the great state of Kentucky. Rand, I want to play something for you. In yesterday's speech, which I think should have been like a libertarian's dream. It was mine. Listen to this.
And it's crucial for the wider world to note this great transformation has not come from Western interventionists or flying people in beautiful planes giving you lectures on how to live and how to govern your own affairs. No, the gleaming marvels of Riyadh and Abu Dhabi were not created by the so-called nation builders, neocons, or liberal nonprofits like those who spent trillions and trillions of dollars failing to develop Kabul, Baghdad, so many other cities. Instead, the birth of a modern Middle East has been brought by the people of the region themselves, the people that are right here, the people that have lived here all their lives, developing your own sovereign countries, pursuing your own unique visions and charting your own destinies in your own way. It's really incredible what you've done. In the end, the so-called nation builders wrecked far more nations than they built, and the interventionists were intervening in complex societies that they did not even understand themselves. They told you how to do it, but they had no idea how to do it themselves. Peace, prosperity, and progress ultimately came not from a radical rejection of your heritage, but rather from embracing your national traditions and embracing that same heritage that you love so dearly.
Rand Paul, what'd you think of that?
Pretty amazing. You know, there have been so many times when I've heard President Trump speak or seen his actions on foreign policy that I've been, oh my goodness, this is the best president we have had in my lifetime. And
I thought he sounded almost like Washington at that point. Just like, do it yourself. We're not here to tell you what to do. I haven't heard that ever from any president.
Well, and this is why the Bush wing hates Donald Trump so much, the establishment, because these are the people who wanted to spread freedom at the point of a gun everywhere. And they thought we were going to shape the world for democracy, which is sort of a leftover Woodrow Wilson idea. But no, this is the part of Donald Trump I completely embrace, encourage, and will defend on a daily basis.
So I said earlier today that I thought that part of that speech was as significant as the Gorbachev tear down this wall speech. Agree or disagree?
I agree. It's incredibly significant to say, you know, we develop these relationships not by bossing around the world, not by intervening, but by basically, you know, trading and he didn't use the word trade, we could have, but basically having trade and good relations with these countries that have developed themselves.
A lot of people don't know that I'm a painter, and I gave up painting because of demoralizing pain in my hands. I was losing hope. If pain keeps you from really living, I urge you to do what I did. Try Relief Factor. Relief Factor is a 100% drug-free supplement developed by doctors. It's safe to take every day, and it has helped me and so many others. You can try their 3-week quick start right now, $19.95 at relieffactor.com. So while we're there, why don't we talk about trading nothing for a $400 million airplane? Where do you stand on this gift from Qatar?
Well, there is this still sticking point. You know, the Constitution says you can't take emoluments or gifts unless they're approved by Congress. I think Jefferson was offered something, and Congress actually voted against Thomas Jefferson being allowed to keep it. And but you can't do it. I mean, it's just, and it's going to set up the appearance of impropriety, whether Congress will protect him and not vote on it, possibly. But the other thing is we're the world's largest arms merchant. We sell arms by the billions everywhere throughout the Middle East. We populate both sides of every war on the planet. And so Qatar is a big recipient of arms from us. And so we make these decisions, and the president pretty much makes them on his own. Congress has the chance to object, and I have objected in the past to both Qatar and Saudi Arabia receiving arms when I felt like, particularly when the journalist Khashoggi was killed by the Saudis, I thought we should have laid off arms for a while, and somebody should have had to pay some penance over that.
Agree.
And so I've tried to block different arms sales before, but, you know, there's a potential that the administration's objectiveness will be clouded by a $400 million plane. There are some practical concerns as well. One of them is where are we on the one that they've ordered? If it's already made and they're just upgrading it, putting the electronics and defensive weapons on Air Force One, and they're within 6 months of being completed, the Qatari plane would have to be completely outfitted.
Right.
It has to be probably stripped down on the inside, completely reconfigured. It has to have the special stuff that is classified.
It's 2 to 5 years just to finish it.
Yeah, so it may be that the other plane is actually closer to being finished than this one. It is disappointing, and Boeing's disappointing on so many fronts that they haven't had this plane since I think it was commissioned by the first President Trump, and 4 years later still isn't ready. Is really a disappointment. But we'd have to know more about it. The thing is, if he really wants his plane, and it's a great plane, the Qataris could either sell it or give it back to Boeing, and Boeing could sell it to us, and we could pay a price. And then we'd alleviate all of this.
Yes.
If he takes it, every family transaction that they have had in the Middle East for the last 10 years or next 10 years is going to be doubly scrutinized, and I think it doesn't come to any good.
So what do you think about the possibility, and this may be giving him too much benefit of the doubt, but the guy is playing, 15-dimensional chess, it seems, so many ways. I spoke to him about the Boeing plane a few weeks ago, and he was smoked. And, we began our participation in and ended World War II in a quicker time than we have ordered that plane in 2018 to today. So what is Boeing doing? And he's saying, and others are saying, that it may be 5 years from now, maybe even 10. What about the idea that he is just trying to push the pressure on Boeing and get it done?
Boeing has become an extension of the government. They're a government bureaucracy, and they behave like it. Look, I think the Empire State Building was built in a year. China right now can erect a
10 months.
10 months?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, China can erect a 30-story building in a matter of 2 or 3 months. I mean, it's amazing how fast things can be done. And Boeing can't make a plane in 4 years, and then sometimes their planes don't fly. And so that is a problem if you're a plane manufacturer and they don't fly. But it's because Boeing is such a slow, ponderous corporation that's been, had monopoly on sort of government planes for so long that they're being outcompeted internationally, and they're just slow, And so I see them more as an extension of government bureaucracy than I do as a real capitalism. But no company could get away with being this poor and this slow moving if there was a real marketplace. So
what do you do to solve that? Because I think that is the real solution. I feel like the former Soviet Union, when they would, when Gorbachev or anybody else would get into a ZIL, you're like, ooh, that's nice. That'll break down halfway to the airport. What do we do? Boeing, you can't sue Boeing. The president can't sue Boeing. The country can't. How do you fix this?
Here's the interesting thing, Glenn, and this intersects with the discussion over trade. Some would say we need to protect them, and that's what we do. We protect Boeing. We protect them from international trade. What if we did this? What if we got rid of the trade barriers and we let all the international companies compete with Boeing? Boeing would have to get better or go bankrupt. So they're inefficient because they are protected. Some would say the same happened to U.S. Steel over many generations. It wasn't that we didn't protect U.S. Steel. We've had steel import quotas for generations. We've tried to do whatever we can to block international steel from coming here, and yet all it did is it led to a large behemoth U.S. Steel that was about like Boeing, wasn't able to react to the marketplace.
But let me talk to you about government aircraft, military aircraft. We have to have an aircraft company. What
I agree.
What can we do? What if because honestly, the right thing for the president to do is sue Boeing. Look, you violated our entire contract. It means nothing. I'm going elsewhere. But he can't sue Boeing because it's, that would be very bad. And the second thing is he has no choice but to buy American. So how do we solve this?
The other thing I guess you could do is you could reduce what they're paid. So, for example, if the government said we were giving them $1 billion, we give them $500 million, whatever it is, And that should be in every contract too. And I think Elon Musk was a big promoter of this when he started building rockets to take satellites into space.
Right.
He said the problem you guys have is it's cost plus, so everybody just keeps inflating their costs because they always get the same profit or bigger profit if they have cost overruns. Make it competitive bidding and put penalties into your contracts. So Boeing should have penalties in the contracts. If you want another airline or another company to make planes in the U.S., I'm perfectly happy to vote for no corporate taxes on somebody who will make planes in competition with Boeing. Okay. Just no corporate taxes, period. 10 years, 20 years. It would take a lot for the incentive because it takes a lot of money to get started in that field. But look, Elon Musk started from scratch maybe 10 years ago building rockets. So you think somebody couldn't, like Elon Musk, start building planes? In fact, I guarantee you, if Elon weren't so tied up with other things, if you said, Elon, why don't you start a plane company to compete with Boeing, I'll bet you have it started in a year.
He would. I know you're giving us extra time, and I really appreciate it, Rand. But let's talk about the one big, beautiful bill. How do you feel about it?
Well, the tax cuts from 2017 I supported. I support making them permanent. And really, I'm very supportive of the president's program on the tax plan. That's a big part of the bill. The second part of the bill is there's supposed to be spending cuts. So far, I think they're pretty wimpy and not going to amount to much. That is bothersome, but I'd still vote for it. Even if I got some spending cuts and made the tax cuts permanent, the reason I can't vote for it is they're going to raise the debt ceiling $5 trillion. And the reason I can't vote for that is that it belies, it really contradicts everything about what we've been hearing. We hear about Elon Musk and Doge and all these cuts, and we're all, jumping up and down from our seats, clapping for Donald Trump. And then the deficit's going to be $2.2 trillion in the end of September, and then they're planning on another $2.8 trillion the next year. They're planning on adding $5 trillion in 2 years, which means there's going to be no reform, and conservatives are going to wake up at some point in this administration and go, wow, where did all those cuts go? What happened? Where's Elon Musk? We haven't seen him in a while. And how come the deficit's going up at this alarming rate? In the past, conservatives have never voted to raise the debt ceiling. It's always been all Democrats and the big government Republicans. And we know who they are, and we've always derided them. And it was a day of shame. The day of shame is when you walk down to the well of the Senate or the House and you vote for all the spending that you put forward. But most of the conservatives, particularly myself and others, we haven't voted for the spending, and we don't want to vote for the debt. Now, I have said I'll vote for some increase in the debt, and I said I'll give you 3 months' worth. So I introduced an amendment about 2 weeks ago to increase the debt ceiling 2 months, 3 months' worth. You know how much that is? $500 billion for 3 months. That's an enormous increase, and it hurt me to even put it forward, but I did saying this. We'll give you 3 months. You're all promising me we're going to have cuts in spending and we're going to balance the budget. And we're going to do all these great things. I tell you what, proof's in the pudding. I'll give you 3 months worth of borrowing power. Then you come back and ask me again for 3 more months. So I would do the opposite. I would have a debt ceiling vote every 3 months, and it would be the lever, and we would only give you an increase in the debt ceiling if you actually were cutting spending. And people say, what about default? Default should never be on the table. We bring in $400 billion.
That's fake. We're never going to default.
Well, we bring in $400 billion in a month in revenue, and the interest payment's $80 billion. Why would you ever default? We should announce to the markets that we have plenty of money, and if we have to cut spending elsewhere, we will, but we won't default on our interest payment. And there's no reason ever to. And this is it's a game they've played just to get everybody to vote for it. They scare everybody to death. They scare the market to death. And then they say, oh, we'll default and there'll be chaos. There's no reason to default. We would just cut spending elsewhere, and we would take the first dollars we get and put them towards the interest payment.
This is the thing. I'm so mad at Congress right now that they won't even go through with the Doge cuts. They're arguing about those, and honestly, the Doge cuts in the end seem a little disappointing. They're not taking the steps that I thought we all voted for.
Well, the Doge cuts are some of the lowest hanging fruit. I'm all for them, but they went to the foreign aid budget, and I've been doing this for years, and they found crazy stuff. $2 million for sex change operations in Guatemala,
right?
Hundreds of thousands for a trans comic book, a trans opera in Colombia. And you know what? They have it in a rescission package. The White House has had this rescission package for about 3 or 4 weeks now. It's only $9 billion, so it's not enough to amount to anything,
Right.
but it's still worth cutting. They're afraid to send it to the Capitol because the feedback they're getting from Senate and House leadership is we don't have the votes to cut $9 billion. And if that's true, these people need to. The reason we send the vote is so everybody knows who these people are.
Yeah.
Who are the people that can't cut out $2 million for sex changes in Guatemala? If you can't do that, they need to be ridden out of town on a rail.
Can you give us some indication on how long we have? I mean, people have been saying it's going to get bad. It's going to get bad. We are really, truly at the end if we don't cut our spending. How much time do we have to cut our spending before we're just overwhelmed by interest payments?
I think it depends on what the interest rate is. So for many, many years, we've gotten away with this. During the George W. Bush regime, we went from $5 billion in debt to $5 trillion in debt to $10 trillion, but our interest payment went from 4 to 2. And then everybody was gleeful, even the Dick Cheney conservatives, like, oh, deficits don't matter. Well, if you keep cutting your interest rate in half and doubling your debt, you can get away with it. But now we're stuck at the opposite end. We're at $36 trillion in debt, and the interest rate is going up. Now, it's stabilized a little bit, but if interest rates went where they were in 1990, when I bought my first house, it was 11%. The government would probably pay a little less than that, maybe 9, maybe 8.
Yeah.
We couldn't pay it. We couldn't pay it today. So it depends on the interest rate. At the interest rates now, we're struggling, and interest payments is the largest item in the budget, and it's crowding out other spending. So we are struggling. We bring in $5 trillion in revenue, and we spend $7 trillion. The entire budget that Congress votes on, which is almost $2 trillion, is all borrowed. So the discretionary spending, what government votes on, military and non-military discretionary, is all borrowed. The entitlements soak up every dollar of revenue. We are in a bad way. I can't tell you when it ends, but I can tell you if interest rates spike, we will be in a serious problem.
I now only have about 40 seconds left. I'd love to have you back. Can you just tell me, is anyone going to pay for the COVID thing? Is that ever going to happen?
We're not done, and I will bring Anthony Fauci back in. We finally discovered the records as to who determined that the money went to Wuhan. They have resisted me for 3 years. Robert Kennedy has helped me get the records. So has Jay Bhattacharya. This week or next week, I'm going to begin interviewing the people who were on that committee. We're going to find out what was the debate, what was the discussion, what were the arguments for sending it to Wuhan, what were the arguments against it, who made the arguments, and then who ultimately had to sign off on this. It is our belief that Anthony Fauci had to sign a document. We haven't found the document yet because it's either been hidden or destroyed.
Yeah.
And there will be hell to pay.
Thank you, Rand. Rand Paul.